Most contractors don't want to earn your business.
No one wakes up saying one day I'm going to be in the franchise industry. The top 50% of owners will do about 680,000 their first year.
I got a special guest here for you. Dan Clapp, serial entrepreneur, owns a restoration business, right? Different business, but it's a franchisor. He's a franchisor. He has 100 franchises under him. It's called Voda Cleaning and Restoration. Pretty unique business. I mean, I gotta first know how you got into this because you don't meet many franchisors. Um, so you're responsible helping a lot of people grow their business and survival of a lot of families, which I did like that as a unique opportunity to have you on the guest because so many of our guests are sole entrepreneurs where you're responsible for 100 different franchisors right now, franchisees, which is you. So first of all, welcome to Exit Rich Podcast. Appreciate you listening to it. Appreciate you reaching out. Tell everybody you are, Dan Claps, and I love your name, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. And Lance, thanks for having me on the podcast. I'm an avid listener, so it's cool being on here. I learned a ton from this podcast. But yeah, Dan Claps, been in the franchise space for about 12 years now, home services space for about 3. My background, no one wakes up saying one day I'm going to be in the franchise industry. You don't go to school for it or you grow up wanting to do it. Kind of stumbled into it. I had a business in college in the staffing and recruiting space. I always tell people if you could write a book called How Not to Run a Business 101, they could write that book about me in college. I didn't have any systems, was all about me outworking everybody and hit a ceiling at one point, right? Because you can only get so far alone. So in my early 20s, my dad actually said, why don't you look at franchises? They're all about like, systems and process. You can learn business that way. So started looking at home service opportunities to be a franchisee in. But at the time, I was 22 years old, had a little capital from that first business, but not enough to do a home service business. So I found a different franchise that I got involved in like the business brokerage, selling businesses. It was lower investment, and I spent 2 years helping people buy and sell businesses in New Jersey, where I'm from originally.
What was the name of that? What was the name of that franchise?
It's called Murphy Business and Financial. And it's basically a business brokerage franchise. They teach you how to list a car wash or a gym. Yeah. So I did that.
You guys do a lot of transactions on that BizSell website, correct? I was like,
That's like your mecca of lead gen is Biz by Sell. That's right.
yeah. And then you guys do, if I'm correct, a lot of owner financing and a lot of SBA, correct?
Absolutely. A lot of seller notes are involved and SBA
Yeah.
loans.
I want to talk about that because we'll talk about that. But I love knowing that you have experience in that. You're surprised I know those things, aren't you, though, Dan?
What's that?
You're surprised I know what BizSell is and BizSell and how it all works.
It was probably a good, deal flow for what you guys do with roofing opportunities now, or
No, we don't. No, we don't deal with that garbage. No way. If you're listing your business on that garbage, you probably don't. I mean, we don't do any. I partner with businesses, and those businesses all get bought by people where the seller is holding notes, they're financing the business, but they're going through SBA, which is a nightmare. We can talk about that. Trying to get an SBA loan, you got a better chance of probably landing on the fucking moon than getting SBA. I mean, I'm not being rude, right? It's just, and they put a gun to your head if you get out of it early. It's just, I mean, it's just not our model at all. I think it's a little different of a model, but listen, there's a market for it. Clearly, I guarantee that's a billion dollar plus market, right? So it's just not the market we're in.
yeah, like there was this at the height of my time doing that. There's this guy, John Conforti in North Jersey, and he was this like 70-year-old guy. He built the business since his like early 30s and in the HVAC space. And so he contacted me to help him find acquisitions. And what was interesting, and I'll never forget this, is he said to me, Dan, if I go and advertise, I don't know where the money goes. But if I go do an acquisition of another HVAC business, 1/3 I'll lose because it was, John's HVAC and they love John and, I lose them. But 2/3, those customers would stay with me. It's better than advertising. And so he grew to like 50 million just through these mini acquisitions. But anyway, did that, left that franchise in 2016, started a lead generation.
So you just shut it down.
That one I just kinda unwound. I was able to, move some listings over. It wasn't really an asset, right? It was just me, like, being a realtor, which was definitely a lesson, right? Which I didn't really build an asset. So 2016, I started a lead generation company in the franchise space. And then 7 years later, did sell that business to private equity.
You sold to a private equity firm or a search fund?
Direct private equity firm.
Nice. Is that company still around?
I'm still around. What happened was, I started that business, still pretty early in my 20s. I had a partner who was a mentor, and what happened was he had a much larger business, and he approached me to build this kind of sister company to that business. And so I always knew that when he went to sell that business, the multiples on it would be pretty high because it was a recurring revenue business, et cetera. And so, really, that was the main target of the PE firm. And then ours was bolted on, which was great for me because it was a big, decent sized business. But I don't know if they would have looked at us as an independent, but because we were attached to that larger entity, I was able to exit that for a good, good multiple.
Listen, I always tell people this. Relationships are important and who you're in bed with is important. You were in bed with the right person, you had the right relationship, and you cashed out. What size was the agency that you had?
Do you mean from like a revenue perspective?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were doing about 4 million in revenue, nothing crazy, but it was a pretty healthy bottom line, and,
Probably like 1,000,000 in EBITDA, 1,000,000, 1.5 in EBITDA.
somewhere around there. Yep, yep, and, but I'll tell you, I learned some lessons because toward the, end of the transaction during quality of earnings, some things went down, as far as the valuation, which the time man, I remember I was flying home, I was flying home from somewhere and I got an email that said, "Open when you land." And I landed and a lot of our numbers went down because of legitimate reasons. At the time, I was like, "This is, BS. What the hell?" Looking back, whatever amount of money I lost in that, you know, kind of screw up of the acquisition price, I've learned from it because all those things I've avoided having in Voda, because of that lesson. So tough
Oh,
lesson to
no.
learn, but it was worth it.
Listen, your best lessons, I always tell people, are the ones that you walk through the door and get burnt. Listen, you can tell your kid. I tell my kids all the time something, they don't listen. As soon as it happens to them, like, "Oh, dad." I'm like, "I told you." Like, what do I tell you? But until it happens yourself. But the nice part is, and this is where, like, I tell people all the time, having mentors and coaching groups and stuff like that, going to all these conferences, if you're open and you don't have an ego, you'll save yourself millions and millions of dollars in mistakes. Because probably cost you, 500,000 or $1,000,000, that retrade, I'll call it, even though you find it a legitimate retrade, that stings. That stings, especially when you're only getting, I mean, if you were at $1,000,000 in EBITDA, let's just say you got 6 or 7 times, it's a $6,000,000 transaction, you're getting 3,000,000, they take 500,000 from you, you're getting now 2.75. That's part of your taxes that you would have been paying. Like, it's an expensive retrade. Like, yeah, I tell people it's expensive to get retraded, and, their job is to buy at the lowest, and your job is to get it bought at the highest. Like, that's right. That's where it starts, right? And then you gotta find common ground. And what happens once you go under LOI, you and I both know this, you probably didn't get retraded to what you were probably a month away or less to closing.
Right, they do quality of earnings, toward the end, and you're already attached to moving on, right? And so, what are you gonna do? You're gonna take the check, and we go to conferences on how to sell roofs better, or do acquisitions. They go to conferences on how to do deals, and they're really, really smart. And I give them a lot of credit. But I'll give you an interesting lesson, Lance, that I learned, which was at Voda, I pay myself a very specific salary. One, because I'm reinvesting everything back into the business, but also down the road, I'll tell you, I don't plan to sell the business anytime soon. But if you take a larger salary, right, that gets rolled into the multiple too, and they'll say, "Well, you had to take the salary. We have to pay somebody else, a CEO, to take this salary." And so, if you take a more reasonable salary, that makes your exit more valuable too. Otherwise, if you've taken $1,000,000 out of the business, they're going to say, well, the next CEO needs to make $1,000,000 too, and then that gets rolled into the or off the multiple.
Yeah, I mean, you can negotiate that. I mean, being that you were an add-on, you didn't have much negotiation power because they would have just said, "Listen, we're not buying your company, let's buy his," and then you're out, right? Like, um, you know, you can say this is the fair market value of a CEO of 200,000 plus bonuses, whatever it may be, depending on a small company. They expect owner operators to have bigger salaries, or distributions, depending on how it goes. But I am with you. I take no salaries, like I tell everybody. I take no salaries from any of my companies, 0. Because I don't run any of my companies, right? I mean, LB Capital is really almost like you know, I it's an example, we know a PE firm without a CEO, right? Like, um, I just don't think it's salary. I don't believe in it. I don't think you should take a salary from any of your companies unless you absolutely need it. Um, I think you're costing yourself somewhere between $8 and $12 on every dollar you take out. Because the faster you reinvest to grow your businesses, the faster you have an asset to sell. So let's talk about Voda though, right? Like this is interesting. So you're in the franchise world. You have now an agency. What made you say I'm going to go start my own restoration franchise? Did you open the first one and do your own restoration business, and then kind of say, okay, I'm going to go build out the systems and process? Because there's a lot more legal red tape in the franchise world than there is in just regular contracting world.
Yeah. Well, firstly, you're spot on. Like when I was doing that exit, it really was didn't have much leverage, right? We were bolt on, and so when I exited, I obviously had a pretty substantial non compete, and everything that I had done in the past, I couldn't do anymore. But one thing that I had carved out was to become a franchisor. And just for clarity, to me at that time, that was like trying to play in the NFL or be like a famous, musician. Like, well, maybe one day I'll be a franchisor. It's like a pipe dream. But when everything was said and done, it actually seemed like really the only direction I could go if I wanted to stay in the franchise space, which I had built a lot of, goodwill and relationships and everything. And so going the franchisor route made a lot of sense. Also, my previous business was all centered around helping people become a franchise owner. I do very much like seeing people, go from corporate to getting into business, the highs, the lows, the emotions, and ultimately building a good business. So being a franchisor kind of
Do you like bipolar people?
yeah, I like it's funny. I franchise owners, they're happy, then they're not, then they're happy. And I kind of, I enjoy that process because over time, the first 2 years of business is hard for anybody, even if it's a franchise.
Oh, yeah.
So what happened was I found this business in Northern Virginia in the cleaning and restoration space. And fell in love with the founder. He's my partner now. He moved here from Serbia, didn't speak any English, 20 years ago, and started this business watching YouTube videos on, how to clean carpets and extract water. But when I met him, he built like this, $2 million business with nice profit margin. And I was a lot like the movie The Founder with Michael Keaton, he plays Ray Kroc.
Oh, yeah, McDonald's.
Yeah, so we were out to dinner, fell in love with the company. The next day I was outside of his, door saying like, you got to franchise this, and I'm the guy to do it. And so acquired the business in February of 2023.
When you said you
We
acquired the business, you acquired the whole business or half of it?
Yeah, great question. So how we structure our deal is he actually maintained 100% of the profits of the flagship business. We took over the majority of this, really franchise entity or franchise idea at that time, right? And so for me, it was kind of like you have nothing to lose. If anything, you have part of this franchise company will be worth a bunch of money. If I fail, you still have your business. The only requirement is we rebrand the company to something a little bit more nationally recognizable. So, he kind of operates as location number one, right? Flagship franchise number one, and then everything from there is all value add. So that's how we structured it. Fit great.
Does he own half of the franchise?
Less than half, but a good amount.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now now I'm assuming you do the majority of the sales for you guys?
Do you mean to find franchisees or for the franchises?
But it's like to find the franchisees. You got a good personality.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. Got a great team as well. We do all of the franchise development, finding franchise owners, and then we do all the operations as well. And so everything from training them, onboarding them, opening the doors, and then helping them with lead generation, call center, bookkeeping, uh, a lot of the franchise, a lot of the business is handled by, or at least supported by the franchisor. And then what we want from our franchise owners is they're going out there being the mayor of the town. They're networking, they're building relationships. No matter how good we are at digital, as you know, you got to go out there and shake hands and kiss babies.
So a lot of people like so let's get into this. You got 100 locations, you're gonna do 60 million. That means average is doing about 600, $700,000 a year in revenue. Is that accurate?
Yeah, keep in mind that most of our owners are, we just started franchising in 2023, and so a lot have just bought or in the past year. Our oldest franchise owner just had their 2-year anniversary in September. Um, but yeah, in our item 19, our average, the top 50% of owners will do about 680,000 their first year. Top 25%, about 800,000, and top producers at 1 million. Now, a lot of you guys listening are on, roofing businesses. You do probably crazy numbers. For us, as a brand new, first time business owner, these numbers, really exciting. And then obviously it goes up from
Well, what most people don't realize is the average franchisee only does a few $100,000 a year. So you're selling yourself short. Matter of fact, I'm gonna do this right now, chat GPT it, because I'd be willing to bet you um it's somewhere between 250 and $500,000 franchisee. On what does the average franchisee in America do in total revenue a year? Hey everyone, thank you for joining us today. I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors, Service Titan and Rilla, our technology of choice to helping us scale and grow our business and making sure all of our viewers have the technology to scale their business so when they want to sell it, they're able to. So the average annual income is around 102,000, 115. So that's what they're making. Franchisors make. So the average gross revenue is about 371,000, just so you know.
Wow.
Across America. So when you know that, that's why I said, Dan, I was like, you're selling yourself short here because if your guys are doing 680, 800 after a year or two, and listen, I'm not a big franchise guy, right? Because I don't have to be. I understand systems and processes, but I say this to everyone. If you're in corporate America or you're putting your lunch money together and you're not sure what to do, if you get with the right franchise, like, do you know Josh Skolnick over at
Yeah,
Horsepower Brands? So, I mean, Josh on probably, so he's probably the king of franchisors, right? I mean, I'm assuming he's one of the top guys in the country,
absolutely.
right? I mean, he has Mighty Roofing or whatever it's called. He sold Monster Trees. I mean, this guy's done it all, right? I mean, he built his own literally his own ecosystem around franchising. He owns the car dealership, he owns the finance co he just I mean, the guy gets it, right? But your franchisees seem to be making decent money, and there's a place for guys that can't scale. Not every business is gonna do 20, 30, 40, 50 million. The majority of businesses in America never see $1 million, $2 million, and it seems like you're giving people that opportunity that don't not sure quite what I'm doing. I'm not sure how to go even get to $1 million or $2 million, and you're giving them that playbook. Is that accurate, or am I just totally off base? Or kind of help me out here?
No, you're absolutely right, and I think that what's important to know is, like, if I teach you something, right, and then you learn it, it's kinda like learning how to read. Once you know how to read, you know how to read. And so for us, what we try to do, I think in the past, a lot of home service franchisors, they train you, they get you open, they say, "Alright, see you next year at the conference, and make sure you pay me the royalty." We really take an approach of, what else can we do to justify that royalty year over year? How else can we add value so that, listen, nobody's gonna wanna pay a royalty, right? If, it's a
Yeah,
royalty, the
what's it about 8 to 10% with advertising all in somewhere in that ballpark?
7% for the royalty, 2% for the brand fund. Now, keep in mind, that's going into even more marketing for their business, the
Listen,
national
I
brand.
was right on. I said 8 to 10%, you're at 9.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But the 7%, it's like, I wanna be in a position where they pay that royalty, they get a call center, they get digital marketing, they get, brand recognition. We're now trying, we're attacking national accounts. So if someone joins our system, we start bringing some opportunity from the corporate level. We
What's
do
the
their bookkeeping.
what's the initial investment?
Yeah, it's about 200,000 all in, up to 350,000. The reason there's a range, if they do an SBA loan, most times lately the SBA wants the truck in the loan. So like you include the truck in there. So between 2 and 350, depending on how they finance it.
What percentage of your deals are you doing that people are taking SBA loans to start their business?
I don't know the percentage. I should. I would say it is a probably at least 50%. I should know that. I'm gonna look that up next time. But
Well,
I'd
I'm
say a
just have
good
that
amount.
number. I would wanna know because SBA loans are personally guaranteed. So people own homes are personally guaranteed.
It's interesting, Lance. I've found a lot of times when they include the truck in the SBA loan, they have been able to not always have a personal guarantee. They collateralize the truck, and that's, I think, one of the reasons they push for the truck to be in the loan. But
That's
I
an
would say,
no-brainer then. Get the truck. Get 2 trucks.
yeah. I mean, I've taken 3 SBA loans through my career, and every time I've had to personally guarantee, assets to do it.
Oh, I got more personal guarantees I know what to do with out there. I try not to sign them. I try to fight them, right? But as you know, listen, I mean, at one point, I was able to get away from personal guarantees. Then what happened is probably about 3 years ago, 4 years ago, um, the environment changed, right? The housing market crashed. Banks started calling notes on people, not me, thank God. And um, that guy's never late. But then all of a sudden, all these deals I was doing in real estate where there were partial guarantees and they burned off. Then now we got to give you full guarantees or you can't buy the buildings. So I'm like, okay, well, then, yeah. But, I tell people about personal guarantees, you know, unless you really screw up, a bank's never going to come for your house. There has to be some type of maliciousness there. But you also don't want to be over leveraged. I tell people this, put down 25, 30% on every piece of real estate. It's probably going to go up and that's going to protect you, right? You just want to protect yourselves. I try and tell people. And once you get to a certain level, it's about not just growing your asset base. It's also about protecting your asset base. Nobody wants to start all over again. You see a lot of people fall because they want to just keep going too much and just, I call it what's your debt lever? What's your debt lever? What's the percentage? A lot of people have a lot of debt leverage, and I really don't have it. I don't have any actually. All my stuff's paid off for the most part. I just think you should live like that. Once you get to a certain level. Here's a question for you. All your franchisee, because a lot of people, the franchisees I know hate the franchisor 9 out of 10 times. That's a fact. Like, why people love Josh Skolnick, like I do, he's been good to me always. But I know a lot of franchisors hate him. Franchisees hate him. My buddy, one-on-one mobility, right? Dave, who founded that, all of his franchisees, we couldn't wait to sell it fast enough to franchisor, right? Because there becomes a conflict when you're taking that royalty every month, 9%. So if I'm doing $1 million a year, I'm giving you about $100,000 a year, right? Like, it's a lot of money. Give you 90 grand, right? Then you do that. I mean, but people don't realize is franchisors make their money that way, right? Like, and that's just, and you're supposed to, if you're given the right support system, right? If you just go 60 million, right? It's real simple, right? And this is where you're going to get paid off of selling your company, is what people don't understand. That's $5.4 million right there. And then if you're running that lean and mean, which you should be at $3 million in EBITDA on your side, $2.5 million on EBITDA. I'm sure you're not there yet because you're reinvesting back into your company for when you do get sold. But is there a lot of friction at different times? Because people don't understand what the franchisor does after they set them up. Like, well, you wouldn't have this. I'm all for the franchisor. I'm in their favor because I'm like, you're the one that gave them the keys and the foundation to be able to have this business. And after they get crushing it, they're like, well, what am I paying you for?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Well, I'll tell you a story first to answer it. We had a franchise owner, early franchise owner, one of our first, join the system, and maybe 6 months or a year in, he called me and he said, and I think we were on Zoom, and he was like, "I don't really want to pay this royalty." And so my response was point blank, "I wouldn't either." And we sat there in uncomfortable silence, and he was like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, I don't wanna pay anyway." Like, I get that you don't wanna pay a bill, like, I understand that. That's like saying, I have a partner, the founder of Voda, who has a stake in the business. We learned everything from him, right? When it's time to pay out distributions, it's easy to say, "Well, like, I learned everything. I don't wanna pay that out." Well, that's not reality. You got into the business. It's part of the thing. Now, what we try really hard to do is explain exactly how you did earlier. You leapfrog when you buy a franchise, you leapfrog years of mistakes. So that's number one, and then number two, I wake we my team wakes up every day saying, "How can we add value to that royalty?" I do think if you took a survey of our system, which we have recently, an overall like belief in the leadership team, commitment to them, we rank high. But I don't think anyone loves their franchisor. Here's the challenge too, Lance. If you buy the business and you do $1 million your first year and you've never owned another business, you're like, this is great. I'm great. I did $1 million my first year. You don't have it to compare it to anything. And so how do you give that credit to the franchisor? You don't necessarily. So even people who succeed may see it as they did it on their own. If they struggle, it's your fault. And so I was in the lead generation business prior. I know what it's like to have, healthy conflict. I actually thrive on that though, because here's the thing. If you listen to them, right, and they give you feedback, what I found is 8 out of 10 times they're right about something, right? And so when you have 100 franchise owners constantly pushing you to do better, you get better. And I'll give you another example. I fly Delta I'm in New York City. I fly Delta a lot. This thing takes me through the air safely every week. I go back and forth. I'm usually on time. When it's late, even because it's weather, you're pissed off at the airline. I mean, think about how amazing it is. You're flying through the air in aluminum, plane. But you're still angry at it. I'm angry if Uber cancels my ride on me, even though how amazing that service is. So it's like, that's just part of building a company. Not everyone's going to be happy. Hopefully most are. But as I said, they kind of go through phases anyway. One franchise owner might be upset with you now, later. It's like being married. It's a 10-year agreement, not or you know what I mean? It's not a short-term agreement.
Well, I'll tell you a funny story. I'll peel out short-term memories, right? So I had a partner, Sam, and we were looking at buying Allstates. We were going in, um, this is like probably 15 years ago now. Wow. And we went and visited this place down at Northeast Philadelphia from Jersey. It was called the Palace Skate Roller Ring. And there was an Allstate right there, right in the next shopping center over. And I met this guy and I said, "Why are you selling your Allstate?" And he said, "'Cause I only own 50% of it." And it was a nice sized book. I mean, the guy was making probably 400,000 or $500,000 a year out of it, right? And that's probably what the average person at Allstate's going to make. So you're buying this business, and you're going to make, no, you're going to probably buy somewhere between four or $500,000 a year out of it, right? And now some do a lot more, right? The guys that are good at it, right? But we were getting into it. I think that's what it was. It was about $500,000, $600,000 guys making out of the book, man, right? So I'm talking to him. I saw he's getting like heated. I'm like, what, like, something's irking you about selling this. He's like, "Well, I shouldn't have to sell it." I'm like, "Well, why are you selling it?" He goes, "'Cause my effing partner, he's never here, has never walked through the doors here, and he gets 50% of all the money." And I was like, "Wow." Well, that's crazy. I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "I don't know why." So you know me, I'm a smart guy. I said, "Did he give you the money for when you started this?" He goes, "Yeah, he gave me the money, but I'm the one that here and runs it every single day, and I lived and I breathed it. I built the book up, and me and my wife were just tired of it. He's taking advantage of us, and that's why we're selling it." And I said to him, I said, "Did you and your wife ever think you wouldn't be making this kind of money and you'd still be at your last job if he didn't give you the opportunity?" He's like, "What?" He's like, "It's me." I'm like, "But it's not you." I'm like, you use his money as the vessel to get this place, and that was the deal you made. He didn't tell you he was gonna come here and help you build it, right? He's like, "No," he told me he's gonna give me the money, he didn't wanna do it. I'm like, "Well, shit, man." I mean, it sounds like you're the one. And we didn't buy his business because we went and bought someone else's. But I was like, "Wow, man." I'm like, "That's how, like, crazy people are." They don't ever thank you for the situation they're in. They believe they're the situation, and they're the one that created this. And when you have a thriving Allstate, it's somebody that probably wouldn't be very successful at a lot of other things. When you ever thought a thriving franchisor or franchisee, it probably wouldn't be very successful at other things because all the system. When I see someone climb the corporate ladder, right? Most of those people, I know I was the vice president of AT&T. This sounds harsh, right? But I think I learned and I became entrepreneurial. Uh, I struggled at first when I left AT&T, right? The systems, the processes, the coaching you get, everything you get helps you grow your business and be successful. And I think a lot of people think it's them. Now, it is them building it, but you also are giving them the tools to build a house, and you should be compensated for that. So I'm all for the franchisor in these situations.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. People forget what it's like to risk the capital. And like I said, Dragon, the founder of Voda, is watching YouTube videos trying to figure out how to, clean a carpet. We give you that all in the playbook. But I think the answer to your question in a nutshell, though, is just live in that healthy uncomfortableness and keep saying to yourself, how do you make the value prop to the franchise owner, better? Because I know if I was part of a franchise system and I know exactly what it felt like. I went through the training. a year later, you forget about the training, right? So it's like, how can we help with lead gen? How can we help with financial education? When they go to sell their business, how can we help them get the best possible multiple within as much we can help them as possible?
So let's talk
So
about that. Selling a franchise is not the easiest thing in the world. Like, it's not, right? I mean,
as a franchise owner,
as the franchise owner, not the franchisor, selling a franchisee, selling a whole franchise is nice. It's a nice payday. I think the multipliers are up over 20 now, right?
it can be, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a nice multiplier to get, right? I mean,
Yeah,
but
I don't know if there's
selling
anything better except maybe, tech or something.
yeah, I mean, it's bigger than home service, I knew that, right? So, but if you go 'cause I was looking at, what was it? Redbox, right? Redbox is the dumpster company,
Yeah,
and
Josh is also, or he sold it,
but
but Josh Skolnick, yeah, yeah.
but I was gonna look at red boxes for all where I have roofing companies just attach it, make it simple. And then I looked at just the revenue of most red boxes aren't even $1 million, as you know. They're high debt businesses, which always scares you, right? You have to take trucks out, you gotta get the dumpsters. And I was looking at buying one, and they were happy with 2 times EBITDA plus the assets. I was
Mm.
like, wow. And I'm like, this isn't really I mean, franchises aren't selling for 10x, 9x, 7x. I mean, I guess just because if you're only doing 1 million and you have 100,000, $200,000 in net, what's the average franchise you see selling for what, 2, 3x?
Well, yeah, on the main street, I think 2, 3 times, profit is probably a good barometer until you get to, like, 500 net and above starts I think you start to see, more, but here's my answer to this, and I have a kind of a specific opinion on this. To me, franchising is a distribution mechanism, it's not an industry, right? So, people will compare, like, a Voda Restoration to a painting franchise or plumbing. I think restoration is an industry in itself, franchising is a part of that, but if you look at like ServPro, to give you an example, ServPro obviously mature brand, but if you look, they have 1,000 franchisees, 2,000 locations. The average location, granted, some of these guys started in like the 70s, right? But the average location does 1,500,000 with like 20% to the bottom line. And you do see a lot of like franchisees in ServPro getting acquired by private equity. Private equity is even coming downstream to franchisees. And so I think it depends on the industry. I think restoration's high growth. I think that if they're part of a high growth franchise system, that helps too. I have not had anyone transact yet in Voda, for with the goal of selling for a multiple yet, so I don't have an answer. Um, I think
I was
there's
just curious. I was just curious. I'm not against it, you know.
yeah.
I think it'd be harder to sell a franchise than I mean, common sense. It's gonna be harder to sell a franchise than it is just a privately owned business to a private equity firm.
Well, you got 2 layers to it, right? You gotta get a buyer, and then the franchisor has to approve that buyer. So now you got
Right.
2, 2 sellers. I think the good is the books and records are usually clean. When I was the business broker, everybody's books and records were, way higher than they actually were. So I mean, the good news is the books, like the financials for because we have to have clean reporting, their financials will be good. But to your point, they got two people have to approve them, the seller and us.
It's funny to say that people's books and what they say are two different things. Guy called me up today, and he's on the phone with me, a private equity firm, saying, "Listen, I'm looking for," he wants to build a platform. He's like, "I'm looking for, $4 to $5 million in EBITDA." He's like, "I just wasted 3 days, going back and forth with this guy telling him he does 25 million in revenue and he has 5 million in EBITDA." I was like, "Sounds about right. 25, like I'm not just doing 20%. You're there, right? Like, makes sense." I'm like, "So what happened?" He said, "Well, we just got access to his P&Ls. He's at $8 million so far this year." And I'm like, "What?" And I'm like, "What's the guy say to you?" It's a down year. You you might wanna have told you that before 3 days in of conversations, like so, like, people don't even know their numbers. Like, people will tell you what they I that's why I get the P&L from people so fast. I'm like, "Give me your P&L." I do wanna talk to you about marketing because you said that you had a marketing agency. Why do most people not understand marketing when I just think it becomes one of the easiest things to understand?
Uh Well, it's funny. I was at what conference? Just recently. You were speaking at it. Pantheon. I was at Pantheon, and I was at your lunch and learn, and I actually asked you, what's your conversion rate on like Thumbtack and Angie? And I'm going to quote you. You said, "I don't give a shit. If it's 3 to 1, that's all that matters. And like I spend X and I make Y," which I actually brought back to my system and quoted you. I thought that was brilliant because you spend X, you make Y. If it's 3 times what you spent, I think that's
We
a
actually
good
make
start.
about 8 times on Angie's on average throughout the year.
8 times over the aggregate. Yeah, that's great. So to answer your question, the first thing we did recently is we built better reporting. And I just recently had a franchise owner, and we are very collaborative. We have all of our franchise owners in chats, and they can all share their opinions. And one owner said, "Angie is like lighting money on fire." So I popped into the reports and I messaged him, 1 to 1. I said, "Hey man, like I know you feel like Angie's lighting money on fire, but I don't know if you logged into your marketing hub, you're actually getting like a 7 to 1 on Angie. Like, I don't know about you, but if I put money in the market and I get 7 times, like that's great." Uh, and he just wrote me back, "No shit, I didn't know that, and he's going to spend more, and it was great." But the first thing we've done, sorry, I shouldn't say the first.
Well, you wanna know why that is, right? You wanna know why people say they hate Angie's, they hate home advisors, you wanna know why, right?
Yeah.
Because there's 2 reasons. Number 1, most contractors hang out with other contractors, and the easy answer is just to say, "It sucks, it sucks, it sucks." So that's what they all said, right? And they don't have the systems or processes to get back the leads. Number 2, most contractors don't wanna earn your business, right? That means, I tell people this all the time. You said you just recently got engaged, right? How long you been with your girlfriend?
2.5 years.
2.5 years. So your girlfriend had a boyfriend before you had a girlfriend before her, right? So you gotta compete for your girlfriend.
100%. She's
I
much
can't
better looking
imagine.
than me.
There you go. So you're a wordsmith. You gotta compete. You gotta keep showing up. You got her to stop dating other men, right? Because whatever, women, whatever. Well, men, yeah, I hope so. What the fuck? But this whole new world, you gotta watch what you say. But you know, you competed for her, right? So at the simplest of terms, you compete for your girl. Now someone's gonna pay me. I'm not supposed to compete. I'm upset that there's 4 or 3 other people out there getting quotes. Well, what is that? And they're always, "Well, they went with the cheaper person." That's not true. Only less than 20% of all people are price shoppers. So when less than 20% of all people are price shoppers, what happened to the other 80%? Why'd you only close 20% of your leads? Because you didn't give a five-star experience. You didn't give the value. You probably didn't ask for the order. You probably don't offer financing. There's so many reasons, right? And that's why people hate Angie's, just so you know, and home advisors and the aggregators. And they don't get back the leads. And it's just a bad thing, Dan, because they work and they work well.
Yeah, I mean, my opinion is with those, like when you see you're getting a 7 to 1, like budget more toward that, spend more on it. But as far as lead gen, there's only so much you could do, right? There's only so many, there's no magic way. We do all of the, we help them with all the, local service ads, Google guaranteed, the lead aggregators, giving them the reporting. I do think we do pretty good at SEO as a large, because there's this larger entity behind them. We're pretty good at the SEO side. But a lot of times people say, "Dan, I just opened and my SEO sucks." And it's like, we're not magicians, right? Like you have to go out there, you got to get reviews, you got to do your part to kind of make SEO work. But um, I think a good part of our business is just educating on what is working, what's not. When I do trainings, Lance, I always do this thing at the end of training before our owners go out in the field. And I ask them, "Is anyone here an accountant?" And no one raises their hand. "A lawyer? No. A doctor? No." And I said, "When you go to your doctor, do you question them?" "No." "Your lawyer? No." "Your accountant?" "No." I said, "Everybody here, when you leave in 1 month, you're all going to be CMOs somehow. You're all going to question the marketing and be magically better at that, even though you're not, an expert at accounting or legal or finance." And I just try to educate people on this is normal. Like your guy in your BNI group that your kids go to soccer with is going to tell you that, the website sucks and all this nonsense. And I just try to educate them up front because we've been down that path. I just had some crazy situation happen where a franchise owner went to use a different marketing agency than the ones we recommend or really require. And they hijacked their site and it was down for a week and they had it direct to some crazy website, not PG website, and wouldn't give it back. And so it's like, that's a lot of what we do is just educating on what works, what doesn't. Don't get fooled by the shiny, marketing company.
No doubt. Um, Here's a question for you, Dan. Listen, the final question I want to talk to you offline about something. If somebody wants to get a hold of you and find out, and just so everybody knows, December 3rd through 5th, Marco Island, the Roofing Process Conference, being rebranded to build it, to sell it for all the home services. We make up a bunch of different home services that come down there. We teach you sales, marketing, how to scale, how to be more profitable, grow your business to sell it to a private equity firm or, some strategic buyer. But Dan, final question for you. What do you think the difference between having your own businesses, going out and saying, I'm going to start my own company, and then joining a franchisor like you? What do you think the difference is?
I think that I'll give you the answer that I give everyone. If someone's looking at doing a Voda franchise or going and doing a home service business on their own, my answer always is I'm not going to tell you you can't succeed. You probably will, right? Like if they have a good drive and they have an ability to get out there and network and Google things and figure it out, I'm sure they will. It just might take a lot longer, right? So it's like, is the 7% royalty worth it if you can bypass years of trial and error and challenges? And it's not just about making money, right? If you could be a better father and husband and because you have the support system that we give, what is that worth to you, versus doing it on your own? Franchise isn't for everyone. If you've always been someone like you're probably the same, obviously the same as me, where like you like to create and innovate, and I've never had a good ability to follow rules. I was a kid in high school with my, you know, paperwork all stuffed in the not in the folder, just stuffed in my backpack. If you're someone that likes to create, it may not be for you, bless you. But if you're like, I like to execute, I like to follow a playbook, then franchising's great.
Yeah, I mean, I actually agree with you on that. If I want to get a hold of you, Dan, how do I get a hold of you if I want to know more about the franchise business? And both.
They're Yeah, thank you. Very active on LinkedIn. If they just type in Dan Claps, I'm usually the first to pop up. Dan Claps Voda, you'll find me right away. If they want to go to the website, it's myvodafranchise.com. So my VODA franchise.com.
Yeah, I gotta ask you a question here, my friend, right? Why are you not on Instagram and Facebook with Voda? 1 out of 3 touches are on Facebook and Instagram. Most contractors are going to be on Facebook and Instagram, not on LinkedIn.
Oh, definitely on Instagram. I probably should have said that instead. Definitely on Instagram. Post every day. That's just Dan Franchise. So at Dan Franchise.
Um, all right, so it's over. Yeah. Huh? Yeah, don't miss the Roofing Process Conference, December 3rd through 5th, Marco Island, guys. Get your tickets now. Elite VIP, there's only 5 left. VIP tickets are over 60% sold.